What if every extra item in your home was quietly stealing your freedom, and you didn't even notice it? It sounds dramatic, but the truth is, most of us don't realize the hidden cost of our possessions until they start weighing on us in ways we never expected. Think about it. Every vase on a shelf, every set of dishes in the cupboard, every pile of papers on the desk, they all demand something from you. They need to be dusted, washed, organized, or at the very least, moved out of the way. And that invisible workload adds up. Here's a number that might surprise you. Americans over 60 spend an average of 55 hours every month on household chores. That's nearly double the time younger adults spend, even though seniors should be enjoying the freedom of less responsibility. Imagine what you could do with those hours instead. That's more than an entire work week every single month. Time that could be spent with grandkids, exploring new hobbies, or simply resting without guilt. And the funny thing? Most of those chores don't come from living, they come from managing stuff. Which means the clutter isn't just filling your home, it's quietly stealing your time, your energy, and sometimes even your joy. The good news? You can take that power back. If you're ready to see how life could feel lighter after 60, hit that like button and subscribe, because what comes next might just change the way you see your home forever. Thalora Wynn was 71 years old when she realized something unsettling. Her home, the place she had poured her life into, no longer felt like a source of comfort. It felt like a burden. A retired postal worker in Arizona, Thalora had spent decades carefully building her home. Every year she added to it, souvenirs from trips, shelves of porcelain figurines, boxes of photos, drawers of holiday decorations, stacks of just-in-case towels and blankets. Her motto had always been, "You never know when you'll need it," and over time that belief filled her space with layers of objects that each carried a memory, a story, or a purpose she thought she might return to. But by the time her 70s arrived, she noticed something new. She wasn't the one managing her home anymore, her home was managing her. Walking into her living room meant scanning a maze of coffee tables covered in knickknacks. Her kitchen counters, once clear and functional, were lined with appliances she barely touched but felt guilty getting rid of. Even opening a closet could trigger stress, because she knew there were piles of things she hadn't used in years. It wasn't the cleaning that wore her out, it was the mental weight of deciding what to do with everything. She began to feel like her possessions were dictating her schedule. Instead of enjoying her mornings with coffee on the porch, she found herself rearranging items, dusting collections, and shuffling clutter from one room to another. The keepsakes that were supposed to bring joy began to feel like obligations. She loved the memories tied to many of them, but she couldn't ignore the reality that her home no longer felt light or welcoming. Thalora's turning point came the day her granddaughter asked if they could bake cookies together. They opened a cabinet in search of mixing bowls, only to be greeted by towers of mismatched plastic containers. It took 20 minutes just to clear a space. At that moment, she felt a pang of guilt, not because she lacked the right tools, but because her clutter had stolen time she could have spent laughing, teaching, and bonding. That was the moment she began to see the difference between owning things and being owned by them. Her story isn't unusual. Many people over 60 find themselves in the same place, surrounded by decades of well-meaning collections that slowly transform from treasures into traps. And here's the hard truth. When the balance tips, it's no longer about enjoying what you own, but struggling to maintain it. Thalora's experience reminds us that minimalism after 60 isn't about stripping away joy, it's about taking back the freedom to live on your own terms. Minimalism has become a buzzword in recent years, but what it means for someone in their 20s or 30s looks very different from what it means for someone in their 60s or 70s. Younger minimalists often chase a sleek aesthetic, clean white walls, a capsule wardrobe, a home staged for Instagram. For them, it's about image as much as lifestyle. But after 60, minimalism stops being about appearances and starts being about survival, comfort, and freedom. At this stage of life, the focus shifts from how a space looks to how a space works. For older adults, a cluttered home isn't just inconvenient, it can be dangerous. The Centers for Disease Control reports that falls remain a leading cause of injury among seniors in the United States, and one overlooked contributor is clutter. Shoes left on the floor, stacks of magazines, or crowded hallways can turn an ordinary home into a hazard zone. This is where minimalism takes on a new urgency. It's not about stripping away personality or chasing minimal decor. It's about creating safe, open walkways and reducing the obstacles that quietly increase risk every single day. There's also the question of energy. A younger person might not think twice about reorganizing a messy garage or deep cleaning a cluttered kitchen. But for someone over 60, energy is a precious, limited resource. Every overstuffed drawer, every shelf jammed with trinkets, every just-in-case item demands attention. And that effort is time and energy that could be spent with family, traveling, or simply resting without guilt. In this sense, minimalism isn't about owning the least, it's about reaching enough so that you can do less of what drains you and more of what restores you. This shift is closely tied to trends unfolding across the US in 2025. The demand for aging-in-place home modifications has skyrocketed, as more seniors choose to remain in their homes rather than move to assisted living. Contractors now focus on wider doorways, grab bars, slip-resistant flooring. But here's the surprising truth. The first and most affordable step toward aging in place isn't an expensive remodel, it's simply decluttering. A minimalist home is automatically a safer home, because it clears pathways and reduces risk before renovations even begin. At the same time, seniors are embracing freedom in new forms, downsizing to smaller homes, traveling light in RVs, even selling most of their belongings to live closer to family or explore the country. With housing costs and inflation pushing many to rethink what home means, minimalism has become less about letting go of things and more about opening doors to new lifestyles. For some, it's a cozy apartment near grandkids. For others, it's a camper van that offers the adventure of the open road. In both cases, having enough instead of too much makes it possible. And here's the fresh perspective. After 60, minimalism isn't about empty counters or bare walls. It's about creating a home that doesn't fight you back. It's about walking into a room and feeling supported, not drained. A home that works with your energy, not against it. When you shift the focus from aesthetics to function, minimalism becomes more than a trend, it becomes a tool. A way to protect your health, reclaim your time, and prepare for the freedom to live life fully in the years ahead. Thalora Wynn used to believe her constant fatigue was simply part of aging. At 71, she expected to slow down, to need more naps, to feel worn out after a day at home. But one afternoon, as she collapsed into her recliner after hours of just catching up around the house, it struck her, she wasn't exhausted because of her age. She was exhausted because of her stuff. Every corner of her home demanded attention, and it was the endless maintenance that drained her energy more than anything else. She began noticing the small ways her possessions consumed her time. Washing dish after dish, not because she had cooked a feast, but because her cabinets were stuffed with plates and cups that always seemed to pile up in the sink. Watering over a dozen plants scattered around the house, many of them gifts or impulse buys, each needing care she no longer enjoyed giving. Dusting figurines that lined her shelves, glass animals, porcelain dolls, souvenirs from vacations decades ago. None of them were harmful, but each one demanded tiny moments of upkeep. Added together, those moments became hours every week, quietly chipping away at her strength. The heavier toll, however, wasn't just physical, it was mental. Every time she walked into a room, her eyes caught on something that needed her. The wilting plant. The stack of unopened mail. The vase gathering dust. Each item whispered a reminder, a to-do, a responsibility left undone. Instead of her home offering rest, it handed her a running list of tasks. That constant mental load weighed more than any box in her garage. This is the hidden truth many seniors only realize when it's nearly too late. Clutter doesn't just sit there, it demands maintenance. And maintenance is relentless. Every extra pan must be scrubbed, every decorative pillow straightened, every framed photo wiped down. Even things you rarely use still take up space in your mind. At first, it seems harmless, just a few extra minutes of care here and there. But over time, those minutes add up to days, weeks, even years of energy that could have been spent on joy, relationships, and peace of mind. And here lies the powerful insight. It's not simply clutter that drains you, it's the invisible maintenance hidden inside each object. That's why letting go is so liberating. Because the fewer things you hold on to beyond enough, the fewer things end up holding on to you. For most of her life, Thalora believed that more always meant better. More clothes meant more choices. More plants meant more beauty. More gadgets meant more convenience. But after decades of chasing more, she discovered something radically different, the quiet peace of enough. And once she embraced that shift, her home and her life became lighter in ways she had never thought possible. One of the first areas she tackled was her wardrobe. For years, she clung to clothes just in case: holiday sweaters, dresses from weddings long past, jackets she hadn't worn in decades. Her closet was bursting, yet she always felt she had nothing to wear. After redefining what enough looked like for her, she pared her wardrobe down to about 40 pieces. Each item was versatile, comfortable, and flattering. Suddenly, laundry dropped from 5 exhausting loads a week to just 2. Folding became quicker, putting things away became easier, and for the first time in years, her mornings didn't start with frustration in front of an overstuffed closet. They began with calm and clarity. Her garden revealed the same lesson. Once, it was filled with dozens of pots, crowded flower beds, and delicate plants that demanded constant watering and pruning. While it looked impressive, it drained her energy, especially in the punishing Arizona heat. After simplifying, she kept only 4 raised beds with vegetables and herbs she truly loved tending. Instead of chores, gardening became joy again. She spent less time dragging hoses across the yard and more time savoring the simple pleasure of plucking fresh basil or watching tomatoes ripen. By focusing on what she enjoyed most, she found herself smiling in the garden again rather than dreading it. And this is the hidden beauty of minimalism after 60. It's not about loss, it's about reclaiming energy for what matters most. Health, relationships, time. Instead of pouring hours into endless laundry, Thalora used that time for morning walks at the park with friends. Instead of draining herself on maintenance-heavy plants, she had energy left to cook healthy meals with her granddaughter. She didn't sacrifice joy, she cleared away distractions so she could experience joy more deeply. Minimalism at this stage of life isn't about scarcity, it's about abundance in the areas that truly count. Enough clothes to make life simple, enough plants to bring delight without stress, enough possessions to feel at ease without feeling buried. And here's the surprising twist: the real freedom for Thalora didn't come from her closet or her garden at all. It came when she tackled an area most seniors rarely consider. And that's where her journey took an unexpected turn. When most people think about minimalism, they picture clearing out closets or giving away furniture. But some of the heaviest clutter in a senior's life hides in places most of us rarely think about. These are the zones that quietly steal peace of mind, safety, and even health. For Thalora Wynn, discovering these hidden clutter traps was what truly transformed her home from overwhelming to freeing. And for many seniors, these overlooked areas are the ones that make the biggest difference. 1. The garage trap. The garage is often where things go when we don't know what else to do with them. Tools we haven't used in a decade. A broken blender waiting to be fixed someday. Holiday decorations from 3 different eras, stacked in bins so high it feels risky to move them. For seniors, the garage isn't just cluttered, it can be dangerous. Heavy boxes, unstable stacks, and narrow walkways turn it into a hazard zone. Thalora realized her garage wasn't a workshop or storage area anymore. It was a maze of half-forgotten objects. The day she cleared it, she discovered she could actually park her car inside again, which meant less exposure to Arizona's brutal summer heat. The hidden freedom wasn't just space, it was safety, convenience, and less physical strain. 2. The medicine cabinet. Few people think of medication bottles as clutter, but this space can quietly become one of the most stressful areas in a senior's home. Expired pills, old prescriptions, half-used creams, vitamins from 5 years ago, all of them add confusion and danger. Thalora admitted she once accidentally grabbed the wrong bottle because her cabinet was too full. That was her wake-up call. She sat down with her pharmacist, safely disposed of expired items, and kept only what she truly needed. Now, instead of feeling stressed every time she opened the cabinet, She feels calm knowing everything inside is useful, safe, and current. This kind of minimalism isn't about tidiness, it's about protecting your health. 3. Digital clutter. In 2025, seniors are more connected than ever. Smartphones, tablets, laptops, they are wonderful tools, but they come with a new type of clutter, digital overload. Hundreds of unread emails, dozens of unused apps, constant notifications. Thalora said she used to feel a wave of anxiety every time she opened her phone and saw 1,346 unread messages. Most weren't important, but the visual noise drained her focus. She began unsubscribing from newsletters she never read, deleting apps she didn't use, and setting up simple folders for important messages. The change surprised her. It felt as freeing as cleaning out a messy closet. Minimalism today isn't just physical, it's digital, too. And clearing that clutter helps seniors stay mentally sharp and less overwhelmed. The key takeaway here is that minimalism after 60 isn't about stark white rooms or empty shelves. It's about reclaiming control in areas that silently weigh you down. The garage, the medicine cabinet, the phone in your pocket, they may not seem like the obvious places to start, but clearing them can lift enormous pressure off your daily life. So here's the question, which of these hidden clutter zones feels most overwhelming to you? Drop it in the comments. Because chances are, the area you avoid the most is the one holding the greatest freedom once you finally clear it. 4 years, Thalora Wynn's kitchen had been her pride and her burden. Every cupboard was packed with duplicates, 3 slow cookers, 5 pie pans, entire shelves of mugs collected over decades. She often told herself, I might need that someday, but in reality, most of it sat untouched, collecting dust. The turning point came when she learned about a local food pantry that not only distributed groceries but also provided basic household items to families starting over. Something stirred in her. She realized that half of what she owned could serve someone else far better than it was serving her. One Saturday morning, she pulled everything out of her kitchen cabinets. At first, the sight of it all spread across the counters was overwhelming. But as she sorted, she began to feel lighter. The third set of mixing bowls? Gone. The heavy roasting pan she hadn't touched in 10 years? Donated. By the end of the day, she had given away half of her kitchen to the pantry. Families who had lost jobs or moved into apartments with nothing now had pots to cook in, plates to eat from, and utensils to make meals together. The surprising part wasn't just how much space she gained, it was what happened next. With her counters clear and cabinets easy to open, her kitchen became warm and welcoming again. For the first time in years, she invited her neighbors in for coffee. Soon, her home became a natural gathering spot. Friends dropped by with pies, neighbors stayed longer to chat, and her once cluttered kitchen became the backdrop for laughter and community. What had once been a private burden transformed into a shared joy. That's when Thalora realized something profound. Minimalism wasn't about watching things leave, it was about creating space for people to come back. Her possessions had once built a wall around her, making her home feel heavy and closed off. But once she let go of what she didn't need, she unintentionally opened a door. By reducing the number of objects, she increased the number of connections. The emotional shift was powerful. Instead of guilt every time she looked at unused dishes, she felt pride knowing another family was using them around their own table. Instead of loneliness in a crowded, cluttered home, she felt companionship in a space that finally had room for others. Minimalism, she discovered, wasn't subtraction, it was multiplication. Less stuff led to more joy, more laughter, more love. And that was a trade she would make again in a heartbeat. The most surprising thing for Thalora wasn't how much lighter her home felt after letting go, it was how the change spilled over into every other part of her life. What began as a few boxes of donations quickly became a ripple effect that touched her health, her finances, and even her relationships. It turned out that minimalism wasn't just about her home, it reshaped how she lived every day. One of the first changes was in how she spent her time. Before, her weekends often disappeared into endless chores, scrubbing shelves lined with trinkets, rearranging cabinets filled with items she barely touched, or running laundry for clothes she never actually wore. Once she pared things down, her chores shrank dramatically. Suddenly, Sundays weren't about cleaning anymore, they were about connection. Instead of dusting figurines, she laced up her sneakers and went hiking with her grandson. Instead of folding piles of laundry, she sat in the park sharing stories with friends. Her schedule, once dictated by stuff, became wide open for life. The benefits weren't just emotional, they were financial, too. With fewer appliances plugged in and less clutter taking up space, her utility bills began to drop. That extra savings, while not enormous, gave her breathing room. She used it to treat herself to small adventures, day trips, dinners out, or saving for travel. For someone on a fixed retirement income, every dollar stretched further when she wasn't wasting money powering a clutter-heavy home. Minimalism, she realized, wasn't about sacrifice, it was about spending her resources where they mattered most. And then there was the mental shift. For years, her bedroom had been crowded with mismatched furniture, piles of magazines, and laundry baskets that never seemed empty. It was a space meant for rest, but instead it kept her mind buzzing with unfinished tasks. Once she cleared it, something remarkable happened. She started sleeping better. Without the visual noise of clutter, her mind quieted. The space itself sent a different message: rest here, not work here. For the first time in years, she woke up refreshed instead of restless. This is the heart of what she discovered. Minimalism after 60 isn't just a style. It's a health plan, a safety net, and a joy restorer. It protected her from the risk of burnout, eased her financial worries, and gave her back the energy to live fully. For Thalora, the ripple effect of low-maintenance living was more powerful than she ever imagined. By letting go of what drained her, she gained the freedom to pour herself into the people and experiences that gave life meaning. And that's a shift every senior deserves to feel. The secret isn't about having the least, it's about finally reaching enough. Enough clothes that make getting dressed simple, enough tools that make cooking easy, enough keepsakes that truly warm your heart. But here's the key: the only way to reach enough is by letting go of the too much. Because the less you own beyond what serves you, the more life you gain in return. At 60 and beyond, that's not a passing trend, it's a lifeline. So take a look around your home today. Ask yourself, what am I keeping out of habit, and what am I keeping because it's truly enough? The difference is powerful. When you clear the excess, what remains isn't emptiness, it's balance, clarity, and peace. If Thalora's story gave you a spark, like this video, share it with a friend over 60 in the United States, and subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors for more ways to make your next chapter lighter, freer, and beautifully yours.